Hello everyone, it's Shannon here for Waffle Flower Crafts. In this video we are going to create this beautiful fall slimline card featuring the fall leaves dies from Waffle Flower Crafts. We're going to add color to these leaves by ink smooshing, and we're going to do it in an ombre fashion to really create this beautiful gradation. We're going to start with the ink smooshing. I have a long strip here of watercolor paper. This is Canson cold press watercolor paper, and this is 3 inches by 11. It's actually just a scrap I had. You're also going to need a piece of acetate. I'm going to use my acetate grid. I'm going to start by smooshing my dark green down onto the acetate. This is a dye ink. This is from Pink Fresh Studio. I'm going to spritz it with some water. I'm going to be a little bit more heavy-handed with the water for this first application of this ink. Once I get that sprayed, I'll then flip my acetate over and press it down or smoosh it down onto my watercolor paper. I can even move the ink around a little bit with the tip of my acetate to kind of get it to cover that corner. Now I'm going to heat set or just dry this with my heat gun. Once it's dry, I'm going to do another application with this dark ink, just smushed out what was left on the acetate. Then I smushed some more ink down onto my acetate, spritzed it with less water this time, and that will make the ink a little bit more in droplets, and I'll get these kind of spotted look, and I really like that texture it adds. And I did heat set after I applied that second coat of the darker green, and now I'm moving on to my next green, which is a much brighter, lighter green. I spritzed it with water, a little bit more heavy-handed with the water because this is my first application of this really bright green, and then I will heat set this with my heat tool. And I actually stop right there, don't apply more of that bright green because I felt like I got enough of that down. I did go back to my darker green though and added a little bit more of that, and I will go back and forth between my colors just to kind of improve or smooth out the gradation a little bit. I'm now moving on to my third green. This is called Fresh Pear. It's a really light green, very, very pretty, but it is a very light color, so I do apply this multiple times just to build up the intensity of the ink. And again, I'm using Pink Fresh Studio dye inks today for my ink smooshing, but you can definitely use Distress inks or Distress oxides to do yours if you have those. I'm almost done here building up that intensity of that fresh pear, and once I finish, I'm going to heat set and then move on to my next color. I have a really bright yellow here, added a fair amount of water because this is my first application of that yellow, because again I'm trying to create a little a wash. Then I'll heat set it. That's important to heat set between your wash and your drier application of the same color. That way you can get a spotty look. If you just apply them back to back without drying in between, it's all going to just be washy. You're not going to get the little spotted look. And I'm now going back to my fresh pear just to, again, kind of smooth out or blend out that transition between the fresh pear and the yellow. And I'm even going back to my grassy knoll to, again, kind of blend it out. So I do go back and forth just whenever I feel like I need to kind of either add more texture or kind of smooth out the gradation, like it's just a little too abrupt between one color to the next, or the transition from one color to the next. Now moving on to this kind of really warm yellow. I love this color. Applied it first, creating that wash, and now I'm moving on to my orange. So sometimes I just totally skip the kind of spotted layer, and that just depends on how that first application looks when I'm done. If I get enough texture in that first application, then I often won't do the second more spotty layer. I'm now moved on to a darker orange here. This is Clementine. I heat set that, and now I'm going to move on to an even darker orange. This is Persimmon. I love that color, really rich. Smush that down, got a lot of texture with that one. I'll heat set that, and we're almost done here. We just have a couple colors to go. I am going to go back through here, go back with my Clementine just to kind of blend out that transition between the Persimmon and that Clementine, just because it is a little harsh. So I kind of go back through my orange and just, again, kind of smooth out or just make that transition between the colors a little bit softer. I'm now moving on to a red. This is a really rich red. It's called Berrylicious. Applied that color and then heat set it. And then I'm going to move on to my final color, which is this brown. I'm kind of going for a maroon here, so I'm going to layer these colors. I started with that brown, heat set it, and then I went back to my red, added that to that that end of the panel and just building up that red, getting a couple layers down just to, again, cover up all the white and build up the intensity. And then I went back to my brown and added that, and that will actually complete my ink smooshing. So I have this really pretty gradation in fall kind of colors, and we're ready to die cut it. I'm now going to pause just a moment on the die cutting to do this panel here. This panel is a cream cardstock. It is 3 5/16 by 8 5/16. It's a little bit smaller than the front of a slimline card, and I'm just going to kind of splatter it with this gold paint here. This is a Heidi Swap gold paint. It just is a similar color to my gold embossing powder. And once I get that all splattered, I'll put that aside, and now I can move on to die cutting my ink smush panel. So here are the beautiful fall leaves dies. As you can see, you get a outline and you get a base. I'm going to grab the matching outline and base and put them across from each other or side by side each other along my strip of ombre paper. And that's going to make sure that the outline will be in similar colors to the base. So here you can see I've popped out all of my die cuts, and I've even gone and die cut a second layer of the outline out of some white scrap cardstock. This is just going to add a little bit of dimension to the outline layer for the leaves. I like that little bit of dimension. It's definitely an added step, and you can cut it out if you don't want to, but I do like that little dimension. I just added some glue to the white outline layer, and then I adhered the watercolor ink smush layer on top of it. Now I'm going to add glue to the back side of that outline layer and adhere it onto the base leaf. And you might see me here, I do add glue to the layer or to the outline, and then just to remove any excess, I'll tap it on the back side of my hand. And that's just to remove any excess glue so it doesn't smush out and get everywhere. You could definitely use a piece of paper if you don't want to use the back side of your hand. I'm now going to move on to my sentiment. I have the label greetings combo here. Lots of beautiful label-like sentiments, but they're scripty, so a really pretty different look. I'm going to stamp this onto a scrap of white cardstock. I am going to heat emboss, so I did apply some anti-static powder, then inked it up in Versamark ink, and now I'm just going to dip it into some gold embossing powder and then heat set with my heat tool. Now that that's all heat set, I will cut it out with the matching die so you can see you get this beautiful little sentiment strip. I do want to add some dimension to my sentiment, so I have 2 strips of white cardstock here. These were just hand cut out of some scrap. I'm going to adhere them one on top of the other, so stack them up, and then adhere them to the back side of my sentiment. This is going to add a little bit of dimension. You could definitely use foam adhesive if you prefer, but I like the lower dimension of stacking cardstock. I've added some adhesive to the back side of my cream panel, and I'm now going to adhere it onto my slimline card base. Once I get that stuck down, I'm going to move on to my leaves. First, I'm just going to arrange them here, making sure that they're in ombre order, and I'm also alternating the leaves, having the top go up for some, and then the next one where the top of the leaf kind of points down. Once I have all my leaves arranged, I'll then just add some liquid glue to the back of them and stick those down. And then I'll finish here just by adding some liquid glue to the back side of my sentiment and adhere it right down to the front on top of those leaves. And that'll actually complete my card. I'll now hold my card up to the camera so you can get a good look at these leaves and that beautiful ink smushed ombre. I love the texture that ink smushing provides. I think it works so well with the leaves, and I think this is a really simple and pretty slimline card design. I hope you guys enjoyed today's card and video. If you'd like any more information on the products I use, please head over to Waffle Flower, and you can follow us on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook for more creative ideas. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day.